Christian books are so important in Spanish-speaking Latin America because the church has grown tremendously over recent years. But at the same time, it hasn't always grown in its discipleship of new Christians.
One of the main weaknesses is just the deepness of the faith. It's how the people is getting in roots in the Word.
That the price that we can offer the people for these books is not really what they can pay. In Latin America, the postal system is really a big challenge. It is not as efficient as we would want it to be. Not many people have access to a credit card or even a bank account.
And if we can publish needy issues and access to those pastors, I think we are making great contributions for the future and present of the church.
Latin America, a continent of many contrasts. And in the last 20 to 30 years, it has also seen rapid growth across the Christian church. This growth has been a great encouragement to the wider global church, but in recent years its speed has presented a problem. A vacuum has begun to emerge across the church of well-trained local leaders. In fact, it's not uncommon to hear of church leaders who have only been Christians for perhaps a couple of years. Access to expensive, formal training is sparse, and so the Latin Church needs to be creative in the way that it equips the new generation of leaders. In the next few minutes, we'll be exploring the crucial role of Christian literature in supporting the development of church leaders in Latin America. We'll also meet some key figures involved in the development of Christian Latin literature and find out how a network called Letra Viva is tackling some of the biggest issues in this area. But let's begin with some first-hand information on the current state of the Latin American Church. Mauricio Solis is the head of Intercambio, a Christian development organization in Latin America.
The church in Latin America is flourishing. You know, we have been living in several stages of development. First, we were expanding the church and growing, but now I think people is getting having consciousness about the need to going deep in terms of discipleship, in terms of the maturity of the faith. And I think if we can promote through literature to the publishing of books that can support the discipleship of people, if we can challenge people through books, if we can access information for pastors that will not have any other option to get good, solid, updated information, Christian publications can be a crucial need for the future.
The continent's relatively high literacy rate and its people's love of books makes the role of literature especially important in Latin America. Maureen Herrera of Costa Rica's Ministry for Culture, herself a respected writer and journalist, explains.
Alfabetización en América Latina, pero sé que en Costa Rica tenemos aproximadamente un 95% de personas que saben leer y escribir, y aquí concretamente en el último tiempo ha resurgido el interés por los libros, por la lectura.
Thankfully, despite some significant challenges, the volume of Christian literature is increasing across Latin America. Arturo Meneses has witnessed this growth in his role as distribution manager of the Christian development organization Desarrollo Cristiano.
In the past 5 years, I think there's been a rebirth, I would call it, of authors in Latin America which are publishing books in Spanish, published by Latin American publishers, and I think that's going to be a great blessing for all the people in Latin America, because it's not only going to reduce the costs of the books, but it's only going to be in a language that's goes more accordingly to the situation.
But while the amount of Christian literature in Latin America is on the increase, significant cultural barriers mean that books and magazines often fail to make a real impact.
Tenemos gran cantidad de libros que han sido traducidos desde el inglés, lo cual presenta dos inconvenientes en mi criterio. Uno de ellos es que no siempre las traducciones son tan buenas y otro de ellos es que vienen de un contexto diferente al nuestro, de un contexto distinto en términos de costumbres, de situación económica. Entonces, si es un libro que trae ilustraciones o ejemplos, muchas veces son totalmente desconectadas de nuestra realidad. Entonces no son tan útiles como si hubieran sido escritos desde nuestro contexto o por un autor latinoamericano.
Yo creo que en este momento también del desarrollo de la misión de la Iglesia necesitamos motivar, estimular y apoyar la literatura cristiana que surge desde el continente. O sea, yo creo que ha servido muchísimo la traducción, pero yo creo que no es suficiente. Yo creo que contextualizar y traducir no son la misma cosa. Yo creo que emergiendo, yo creo que escribiendo, inspirándonos desde el contexto en el cual trabajamos y resolviendo las necesidades con nuestro propio lenguaje, nuestro propio estilo, nuestra propia manera y marcos mentales de responder a ese contexto es súper necesario en este tiempo.
Another challenge for Latin publishers is to encourage Christian writers to cater for the millions of spiritually hungry people who don't yet know Christ.
A mí me parece que los cristianos deberíamos escribir con mayor frecuencia para no cristianos. Yo especialmente estoy muy interesada en que surjan personas interesadas en producir cuentos, novelas, escritas por personas cristianas, porque los cristianos irremediablemente vamos a traducir en lo que producimos nuestra visión de mundo. Entonces, si hay alguien que está en capacidad y con autoridad de hablar sobre esperanza, sobre amor, sobre misericordia, sobre paz, somos los cristianos. Deberíamos tener cristianos entre los escritores de narrativa latinoamericana, pienso yo.
Unlike in Europe and the United States, Latin America does not always have the right infrastructure needed to get books to people. The postal system is not always reliable, much of the population do not have bank accounts or credit cards, and access to the internet is low. As a result, books tend to be expensive and out of reach to many. Students are one group in particular that find it difficult to get access to good Christian literature, as Fernando Montero, General Secretary of the Student Ministry Estudiantes Cristianos Unidos, explains.
Las principales dificultades que tiene un estudiante cristiano para conseguir buena literatura cristiana que le ayude a pensar en su profesión según la palabra de Dios es primero la accesibilidad, diría yo. No llegan muchos libros al país, o por lo menos si llegan, no los tienen las principales librerías donde los muchachos pueden llegar y comprar. Están en lugares poco accesibles o poco conocidos. Entonces la accesibilidad en primer lugar podría notarse como la principal dificultad. Luego el costo. Hay impuestos que el gobierno pone a la importación de libros y todo eso va elevando el precio que al final el estudiante tiene que conseguirlo.
So, at this strategic time for the Latin American Church, what can be done to overcome the problems that limit the availability of high-quality Christian literature?
Books have been published in Spanish in Latin America for many, many years, ever since the beginning of the evangelical church. In recent years, a lot of that production has moved to the United States and is imported into Latin America. But there are still many groups that produce books within Latin America, normally with books written by Latin American authors, that's much more linked to situations and needs within their own home countries. Many of those groups have been working very independently, maybe not knowing others in a similar field doing similar things. And it was in 1996 that it just so happened that a group of these publishers were together in a conference in Ecuador and began to share experiences, share some of their needs, some of their concerns, and just realized that this was the time, God's timing as it were, with all the opportunities now for internet and better communication, to sit down together and say, well, we can learn so much from each other. Maybe one group is much better in designing books than another, another's much better in editing books than another. Together we can learn from each other, and also we can do so much more together. So the network Letra Viva was formed in 1996 to do those things together that it's difficult for publishing groups to do separately. Well, Letra Viva is a network. It's not an organization with a huge building and lots of staff. It is simply a network. In other words, we work, the most important links are between member groups, the 40 member groups of Letra Viva now. Some of the important things we're doing, for example, are together organizing training of member groups, training of people working in those publishing ministries. It's very difficult to organize in one particular publishing group, to organize training in just one place. It's much easier together to bring people together with similar experiences, similar needs, to a larger group in one place around the continent and organize an excellent training consultation, which we now do once a year. So training is very, very important. We also produce materials, we share materials between each other. And then distribution is a key challenge in Latin America, in the Spanish language countries, where we have over 20 republics with the customs barriers between each country and the huge geographical problems, postal services that don't work, people don't have bank accounts. There's so many difficult problems to distribute books and get books to the people who need them. Together we can work on this problem in many different ways. For example, we can help each other. A group in Argentina, a group in Colombia can say, well, let's help each other distributing books in each other's country. And then together we, for example, have formed one central continental distribution center where all of us together can place our books so that somebody can obtain the books from one central location. So there are many ways in which we can work together to overcome the problem of distribution around Latin America. Some of the other ways in which we're working together as a network are to work with readers by together producing material and information in an attractive way to tell people about the books that are available. Often people don't look for the books that are available because they simply don't know they exist. Together we're working together to produce attractive literature for pastors, for leaders, for book buyers, material we can put in bookstores around the country, material we can take to pastors' conferences and large congresses and show people what material is available in Spanish. So that whole area of information and working with readers is very important. We have a new web page which again, for those who have access to internet, they can find out what books are available and who's producing them. We produce information for potential writers, information about the publishers who might be interested in what they're writing, to link together writers with publishers. And then a very key area too is on the pastoral level, a personal level too. Publishers have a very difficult life producing books, struggling with getting the books to the people who need them, all the practical problems involved in working in Latin America, working with printers, the financial strains and stresses. And often people in their local churches don't understand exactly what it's like being an editor or a publisher. But other colleagues in Letra Viva, we do. So together we can support each other and pray for each other and help each other on a pastoral level. That's very important. I think there are three key ways in which people can support the work of Letra Viva. First is through prayer. We're involved in a spiritual struggle, as it were. I think the evil one doesn't want good Christian books to get out to those leaders and pastors and ordinary Christian people. He doesn't want those books to reach them and change their lives. There are many challenges, as we've already mentioned, to this work, and prayer is important. It's essential. So we would ask people to pray. We can provide information, and they can pray intelligently for the Christian publishers and for the network that these books that are transforming books can reach out around the continent. A second area is through skills and information. There are many skills involved in producing books, from editing, working with writers, design, desktop publishing, through to administration, marketing, sales. All of these are essential skills. And very often we publishers find that in Latin America it's hard to find Christians with those skills who can help us. And it may be that there are people in other parts of the world who maybe work for publishing companies or have similar skills who can help Christian publishers within Latin America. So there are ways in which somebody can support a Christian publisher, maybe through letter, through email, through telephone, just simply giving advice, giving help, sending useful materials, maybe useful books, useful articles, maybe through short-term visits of a week, a couple of weeks, and maybe through longer-term service. It'd be great to have folk who are prepared to come and maybe giving years of their lives. A third area is through finance. Christian publishing isn't easy, it's expensive. Publishers aim to be self-sufficient, we aim to be cost-effective, but there are expenses involved, obviously. And as a network, as we're involved in training, as we're involved in development, as we're involved in launching new projects that will help extend the range of publishers around the continent and reach those people who aren't being reached by books at the moment, there are many projects that are expensive. And so financial help obviously is very useful and needed for the development of Christian publishing in Spanish.